This is the Sons of UCF podcast, your place for UCF sports talk year-round. Now, here is Adam and Mike.
Well, hello everybody. It is the Sons of UCF, episode number 147. My name is Adam, and as always, I've got my friend and yours, Mr. UCF Mike, back for another week. Michael, how are you, my friend?
Fantastic, man. We're 2-0. Very exciting game. We scored 9 touchdowns in one game. We won by 7 touchdowns. What's not to like so far about this season?
I can confirm all of that is accurate, and all of that will be covered on tonight's show, including, Mike, obviously the big news that we'll talk off the top here, Big 12 UCF collision course. We'll review that. Obviously, we'll go through the game. We'll give you our category breakdowns. Mike's picks has returned for another week. I don't know how Mike did this week. I feel like I saw on the pool tracker he's creeping up, so everybody keep an eye on UCF Mike. We'll do UCF Observations and Saturday's headlines today, plus Cow of the Week. All that coming up here on this exciting 147th edition of the Sons of UCF. Another thing you can do while you're waiting for us to get to all that stuff, make sure you hit a follow on all the social media stuff at Sons of UCF, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Find us on all that stuff. Our website, twonightsmedia.com. Mike is on Twitter at UCF Mike1. Make sure Thursday nights you are seated and ready to go for the live show featuring Mr. Trace Trelko, which is streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We have a lot of stuff going on, Mike. It's football season. What else would we be doing other than giving you football?
I mean, we talk about other current events too, but yeah, we are mostly a football show, and there is another big deal that happened this past week.
Is there?
It's pretty big, I think.
What happened?
We finally cracked into the P5, baby. We are officially members of the Big 12 Conference.
Oh, yeah.
It starts in a couple of years, but the paperwork is done. The deal has been signed. No longer are we a G5 program anymore. We have taken the next step in college football. We
have, obviously. So if you've been living under a rock or just came back from an all-expenses-paid trip to some deserted island, UCF has accepted official membership to join the Big 12. Projections are that'll come as early as the 2023 season. UCF will be a member in all current sports except for men's soccer, which oddly enough is not a sport in the Big 12, so that has to be worked out, Mike. But you saw a lot of really cool moments, of really just memorable moments. You saw the Board of Trustees unanimously vote to accept that invitation. You saw Terry Mohajir, Alex Cartwright, Commissioner Bob Bowlesby in a joint press conference talk about the decision to bring UCF on board. Let's just start there, Mike. As somebody who's been associated with UCF since you and I first stepped foot into Orlando at that Knights Crossing Phase 3 back in 1998, what were your thoughts and emotions when you saw that UCF finally, to your point, had cracked the quote-unquote big boys?
Man, I didn't know how I was going to react. I knew I was going to be very excited. I was very happy. I watched the Board of Trustees meeting, and when they finally all voted yes, I got to tell you, I got a little emotional there for a second. A little lump in the throat was there. I was very happy. I was in the car just clapping my way all the way back to the office, and then I watched the press conference, and that had me excited. Timo had me pumped up during that thing. He cracked a couple jokes along the way. It was just a great day. You couldn't wipe the smile off my face all day Friday, walking around in my UCF polo, proud as a peacock, and just knowing that the cows were being left behind and they were miserable made it even better. It's just a great time to be a UCF fan, and for guys like us and guys that go back further than us, to see this program grow and take each little step along the way has been awesome.
Yeah, I mean, Timo did a nice job of laying out the history lesson. UCF really only been an FBS school for 25 years. Obviously, the youngest school in the quote-unquote Power 5 conferences now, Mike. I remember when you and I were in school there, we were excited. We went to the MAC, and my, how things have changed that we are now accepting an invitation to the Big 12. I thought a few things were really interesting about that entire ceremony, if you will. I thought it was really cool that Terry Mohajir acknowledged that he reached out to Danny White and to Coach George O'Leary. He mentioned Todd Stansbury. I don't imagine he was giving you an exhaustive list in that moment. I think he was talking more off the top of his head. But to hear that he reached out to all those folks who played a role in where things are at, and to see both him and President Cartwright just talk about how many people built this foundation, and they happen to be the ones who were there. I think Timo said it best, is when he walked up to the plate, the bases were already loaded. So I thought that was a cool thing initially, just to recognize and give a tip of the cap to all the folks who came before them that laid a lot of the foundation, laid a lot of the groundwork to make this day a reality.
Yeah, he knows that we didn't join the Big 12 based on his work here in the last 6 months. This has been something that's been building for a long time now. And I was very close to calling George myself on Friday. I was talking myself into it. I was going to do it. I ended up not doing it. But the guys like him, President Hitt, Wayne Dench, the big-time donors that supported this program a long time ago when it almost folded. Coach Gene McDowell that did so much for the program early. Guys like that, to get to where we were, to where we are now. We started from nothing, right? Well, how's the song go? Started from the bottom, now we're here.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how?
That's exactly how it goes, yeah.
And now we are here, baby. We are in a big Power 5 conference, the Big 12. It doesn't get better than this. I guess you want to join the next step when we move on to the Big 10 or the SEC 5-10 years from now. That's the next step. But right now, this is great news for us.
Well, let's break down why this is great news, right? Because I feel like people are just saying, hey, it's great, we're in a Power 5 conference. But I don't know that we've discussed enough about why this is a big time move. So let's just start with a few different things off the top, Mike. Financials. Financials are going to play a huge role in this. And TV contracts right now, the American contract pays, I guess at its apex, it'll pay about $7 million a year. From what I understand, that deal is staggered. So UCF's not getting $7 million specifically this year. That number may be closer to $5 million. Now, the Big 12 has a TV contract. Obviously, that's going to be up for negotiation once Texas and Oklahoma leave. So what that new contract looks like, who really knows? The cool thing about right now is every sports writer in America appears to be a TV executive as well. So you're seeing ranges of TV contracts between $20 and $30 million, again, possibly staggered. So even on the low end, Mike, even if you say that thing is going to be $20 million, that's 4 times the revenue right there alone from the TV contracts for UCF. For a school, obviously, that's operating or has operated on a pretty tight budget. And largely only landed in the black this year because of folks in Tennessee that took both Danny and Josh and gave us some buyout money. That 4 times the revenue, Mike. I mean, that's just insane when you think about where UCF's at, and then you think about all the plans that Terry Mohajir laid out for what UCF wants to do with their facilities. Fourfold revenue is definitely something that you should not sneeze at.
It's incredible. Just think about the money you make right now in your salary. If I would told you tomorrow that you were going to get 4 times as much per year, you'd go nuts. It'd be incredible. So, and then you multiply that over a 10-year period. We're going to be making $250 million in 10 years. Whereas if we stayed in the American, we'd make $30 million, right? And that's probably going to go down now that the biggest teams have just left. Teams like East Carolina and the Cows, they're going to be getting nothing compared to what we're getting in the Big 12. It is huge. We can build all the facilities we want now. We don't have to depend on – we're still going to be getting donations from fans and everything, but we got this money in our pocket to start every season. This makes it a lot easier for the coaches to go out recruiting and hiring the best coaches and keeping the best coaches here. There's no need for Gus Malzahn to go anywhere else now. He's in a power conference. He can tell that to all the recruits, hey, we can be in the playoff every year right here at UCF. And now it's in our hands. I can't wait to see what happens once we do get this money. And the lazy river turns into, a water park with some big time slides on it.
Well, the other thing to think about what revenue is UCF will also get a share of revenue from bowl game tie-ins, particularly New Year's Six bowls and the college football playoff. The Autonomous Five have a specific deal that they get a revenue share from the playoffs, so something that UCF was not getting in the American. So who knows what that money will look like? I don't know that there's projections on that, but there'll be money that come from just having a conference affiliation with some of these bowl tie-ins and New Year's Six bowls and the college football playoff. You mentioned bowl tie-ins. UCF will have access to some interesting bowl tie-ins as being part of the Big 12, namely the Alamo Bowl, the Cheez-It Bowl, the Texas Bowl, the Liberty Bowl, the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, and the Armed Forces Bowl. That's in comparison to the Military Bowl, the Hawaii Bowl, Cure Bowl, Boca Bowl, Gasparilla Bowl that they had in the AAC. Not to mention, Mike, this obviously puts UCF in a position to now have an easier access path to the college football playoff. Obviously, that was not something that was super simple to do from a Group of 5 school. We've obviously never seen a Group of 5 school crack that top 4. Whether that remains a top 4 or a top 8 or top 12, who knows? But obviously, being a part of a Power 5 conference gives UCF a little bit more opportunity for invitation to that particular tournament. Should UCF's record be eligible?
Right. Years ago, the Liberty Bowl was the best bowl we could possibly go to when we were in Conference USA. Now that's about the 4th best bowl here in this conference. Being in the American, if you win it, most of the time you are the New Year's Six representative, but it is not guaranteed that you go to a New Year's Six game. It's very possible that a team like Coastal Carolina could get that this year, or some other team, sometimes maybe the Boise State some years, could take that bid from us. When we're in the Big 12, you win the conference, you are guaranteed to play in the Sugar Bowl. Unless it's one of the playoff games, you're not in the playoff, but you're guaranteed to be in a New Year's Six game that year. And there's going to be times where the champion of the Big 12 may be in the playoff, and the runner-up gets to play in the Sugar Bowl, which is a big-time bowl. So all the bowl games that we're eligible for now have gone way up. The opponents are way better. We're playing against teams in the SEC, I believe, in like 3 of those bowls. The ACC and the Big Ten are the other opponents in some of these. Instead of playing against the 4th-place team in Conference USA, we played Marshall a couple years ago. And we don't have to play the Sun Belt teams and teams like that, the teams from the MAC. So the bowl season just got a lot more exciting because of this move. And everything else that goes along with it, man, this is a big-time conference now.
Well, let's talk about recruiting. So that's the other element that obviously has the potential to really give UCF some additional resources and insight. Obviously, recruiting budgets can go up with some of the other budget from a football program. But, Gus Malzahn said it in his Monday press conference that, somebody asked him a question about how this plays. And he said that, him and his staff have learned that a bunch of recruits, I think his exact quote was, people are like, oh, we like you a lot. Oh, we didn't realize you weren't part of the Power 5. So automatically that helps, to cross something like that off the list, Mike. And think about it right now. So kids who are going to sign in this 2022 class, which is going to be kind of awkward, right? Because, as this thing kind of dwindles down, it'll be a bit of an awkward year where UCF's kind of a foot out the door and the American a foot in the door of the Big 12. Dissimilar to what Texas and Oklahoma have to go through kind of in a 3-4 year window. A whole recruiting class of Texas kids may never play in the SEC, yet they're going to be promised SEC stuff. Well, if you are a 2022 recruit from UCF, in theory, 1 year later, you'll be playing in the Big 12. And so that short transition, that short timeline hopefully helps out in recruiting. Obviously, it gives UCF a foothold, to say, hey, you don't have to leave the state of Florida to play in a quote-unquote Power 5 conference. The negative recruiting that may come from Miami or Florida State saying, hey, you don't want to go there. They're not even eligible for anything. Well, that gets crossed off immediately. So I'm curious to see how this plays out, Mike, because I will say on the flip side, how many kids are growing up in Orlando? How many kids are growing up right now in Pembroke Pines, Florida, who's a junior high school guy, 4-star recruit is like, man, I can't wait to play at Iowa State. So, I don't know there's a natural tie-in to say that people are going to want to gravitate to UCF just because of the Big 12. But I think if you factor in everything else that comes with it, and then you layer on top the fact that, there's access to the playoff through this Power 5 conference, I think that's going to make a difference, Mike. But what are your thoughts or perspectives on how recruits may take this move to the Big 12?
Yeah, we talked in the offseason before this year how we needed to beat out the teams like Pittsburgh and NC State and Virginia Tech that come down here and steal these 3- and 4-star players from Florida. That the only reason they're going to those schools instead of UCF is because they're being promised to play in these big-time conferences, because they're playing in a Power 5 conference. And that holds a lot of water with these kids. And now they don't have that on us. Now Miami doesn't have that on us. Florida State doesn't have that on us anymore. We are on equal footing with every school in the country now. And you want to argue the SEC still has that recruiting advantage over people? All right. Some kids will still be gravitating towards that SEC name. But you compare us to Virginia Tech, Virginia, any of these ACC schools, we're right there with them now. There's nothing they can say over us, and I think that's going to help keep a lot of these kids home. And now UCF can build its brand here in Florida with local kids that sometimes would have gone out of state. They would have gone to Nebraska, or they would have gone to Wisconsin. Now there's no reason to leave the state anymore.
Who goes to Nebraska? I mean, the other thing too is don't assume the Big 12 is done. Obviously, there's still talk about adding in additional schools. I think there was a list of another 2 that potentially could come at some point. I think rumors were that was Memphis and Boise State. Whether that holds true, when that holds true, I don't know. So obviously the Big 12 may not be done expanding, Mike. But what I'm curious to see is what UCF does in the next, 18 to 24 months as they do this transition. It's been a minute since a Group of 5 school transitioned to a Power 5 conference. Really, the last example I can think of is TCU, who oddly enough went to the Big 12 from the Mountain West, Mike. And TCU, they were a good school in the Mountain West. They were, their previous 4 seasons, they were 11-2, 12-1, 13-0, and 11-2. They got to the Big 12, and they summarily went 7-6 and 4-8 their next 2 years. So the transition can certainly be a bit of a challenge. And so what does UCF do in the next 18 months or so to continue to get themselves ready to make that that step into the conference? I don't know how much better I think the Big 12 football I guess schedule or schools are. Obviously, I think that the top is probably a little bit better, but how especially if you're bringing in Cincinnati and Houston with us, which we are. BYU is pretty darn good as well, so I assume it's appreciably better, but I guess it's hard to tell exactly how much better it is and how much better it will be. But I'm curious to see what UCF, both as a department, as a football program, even as other athletics teams, what they do in the next 18 months to prepare for the entree into the Big 12.
I think if you look at the teams that are added now, this season, I would say that UCF, Cincinnati, and probably BYU are better than any of the remaining 8 teams that are there in the Big 12. And you want to argue Iowa State, but really none of them are powerhouses right now this year. So if we were to join the conference this year, I think we'd be competing at the top of the conference. Yeah. Now you want to say that there's no more cupcakes, or not as many cupcakes. I mean, you still have Kansas in there, but there's not, the Cows, Temple, and East Carolina on back-to-back weeks anymore. So the chances of getting tripped up are a little higher now in the Big 12. You're probably not going to go undefeated every year. You can still have a very good season. You can still win the conference, but some point along the way, you may hit a speed bump. Well, go ahead.
And the unknown right now is how many years, if any, will we be playing with Texas and Oklahoma still? They're not slated to go to the SEC until 2025. If we're there in 2023, are we overlapping those 2 years, or are lawyers going to do what lawyers do and try to find ways to get out of contracts and get things moving? So it could be interesting if we get a couple seasons with both those schools and kind of really see how things stack up, particularly against 2 programs that Texas hasn't been back in a long time, but Oklahoma has traditionally been one of those top 6 to 8 schools in the playoff conversation. Getting a chance to stack up against those schools for a couple of years could be really interesting.
Yeah, that would be fun. I hope that happens. And I want to play Texas. I want to see Oklahoma come to the bounce house. That'd be awesome. I don't believe for a second that they're staying there until 2025. I think they're gone after this year. Whatever they have to pay to get out of these contracts, they'll do it. It'll be good for us. It'll be good for the Big 12. We get a lot of money out of these guys. But I don't expect to ever play these guys in conference. It's just the way things work. 3 years to be a lame duck school in a conference, that's a long time.
Yeah.
There's no way. At most, they'll be there one more year, and they're out of there by 2023 by the time we get there.
Yeah. Like an overall, a landmark day in UCF athletics. There's probably a handful of days that you can look back on if you've been a UCF fan for a long time and say, man, this is a day that has the ability to turn the fortunes of the entire school around. And again, you saw Mike in the meetings with the board of trustees and with President Cartwright and Terry Mohadra, how excited they really were. It's just one of those seminal days, Mike, and there still will be some work ahead. Obviously, this isn't, we're not just going to walk in and say, hey, we're going to be the best school out there. There's going to be work ahead. There's going to be a lot of things to do from some of the other sports programs. Men's basketball is definitely going to have an uphill battle. Women's basketball, again, Baylor women's basketball team is pretty solid. Obviously, we faced UConn a bunch. So, we're not, immune to that, but really all programs, across the spectrum, the competition is going to change. So we'll see the evolution of a UCF athletics program here in the next 18, 24 months. And it could be a fun ride, Mike. There's probably going to be some bumps in the road, but I think it's going to be a fun ride. It's one of those where, again, you'll circle this date hopefully as the day you remember, and one of those most important days in UCF sports history.
Definitely. It's being billed as the most important day in UCF sports history, and I have a hard time finding another one. You want to talk about the day we got a stadium on campus, which probably is one of the biggest factors that led to this, as we see now what happened with the Cows when they didn't want to do it. That's something we did to show that we were building this program. But this is it, man. This is it. Going into a Power 5 conference we've been waiting for forever. It's finally come, and in a couple seasons now, we'll be playing what they call big boy football.
Well, there's so many things. I mean, I try to think about that the other day. Like, what are the moments that led to this? And it's almost like you can't change anything along the way, right? Because you can't change the journey, because that changes the journey. But you got to imagine that 2017, 2018 season with how well we played, getting on the national stage. That's a big part of it. I think obviously if you weren't a winning program, I don't know how much conferences would want to expand with you. And so there's just so many things across the way that I think have led to this moment. And again, if you're a lifelong UCF fan, and you saw a bunch of those guys on social media, I saw Eric DeSalvo and his dad were, oddly enough, drinking out of the same champagne bottle, which is interesting, but celebrating just the amount of time nobody's been around UCF as much as Joey DeSalvo, and to see his excitement and some of the guys who've been around for a long time. That's just really cool to see that, because young universities get a chance to be a part of this. 175 years ago, somebody's grandfather's grandfather was around when, Florida went to a Power 5 program, only because they were around then. But it's cool to actually see it happen and be a part of it and have memories of when that took place as part of your university.
That's right. And there's still so many more steps to go. We're still at a very young school compared to all these other programs. We've got a long way to go, and we're moving fast. We've gone through all these steps pretty quickly. The last 25 years, really, right just before we got there is when we joined Division I. And to see us go from independent to the MAC, to Conference USA, to the American, to now the Big 12, it's been incredible.
I think the other thing, too, it's great about being a UCF fan is there's a faction of people out there, myself maybe a little bit included, that we're still waiting for the rug to get pulled out from under us, right? We're still waiting for some other major change in college football, or the Big 12 getting downshifted out of the autonomous status, which I know is asked a lot about during the press conference. So there's probably that UCF fan that still has like the corner of their left eye looking, just being like, when's the rug going to get pulled out from under us? Because it feels like we've been on this precipice before. The Big East thing was one of those things, Mike. But it feels like right now things are pretty solid. But it's college sports, it's college athletics, anything can change. But right now it's definitely a good time to celebrate, although I can understand if there's a fan or two out there that's waiting for that rug to get pulled out.
Well, you never know what's going to happen. Nobody saw Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC. And tomorrow we could wake up and find out that Clemson's on its way there and the ACC is in shambles, and who the heck knows? The Big Ten makes a move and something else changes. But as of now, nobody's going to rain on my parade. This is where we're at. We're enjoying it. But let us have at least a few minutes of fun here.
Give Mike his moment. Again, we will obviously stay close to the situation. It sounded like two things I thought were interesting. One, I believe it was our intrepid reporter, Trace Trelko, asked Terry Mohajir what your conversations with Mike Oresco have been like, and Terry Mo said, we haven't spoken, which I thought was kind of interesting and kind of funny. And then later on, he was asked about, Timo was asked about, getting out of the contract, and he said, we're open to anything. Oresco was later quoted as saying that it may be within the best interest of, these institutions to maybe leave earlier, that you really don't want someone around your conference who doesn't want to be there. So are there even options that get this thing done a little sooner? I don't know, Mike, but I guess I find it kind of funny that I don't even really know how to think about it, that Timo and Oresco didn't really have any conversations about this leading up to the press conference.
Yeah. I don't know if Oresco has spoken with the guys at Cincinnati, but they were flying a Big 12 banner, running around the field with it before their game this past weekend. I don't know if he's talked to the guys over at Houston either, but we sent them a little text message or something. Hey, we're out of here. Hopefully we don't get screwed by the refs. But the good thing is we're playing Cincinnati. Who are the refs going to favor in that one? So either we're getting screwed, they're getting screwed. Who the heck knows? Maybe they'll try to fix it so that Tulane wins the conference this year.
Well, what's funny is I think Oresco came out and said that he had gotten some nice notes and everything, and he referenced specifically Luke Fickle as someone who reached out, or either, I don't know if it was via phone or text or email or whatever, and sent him a nice note, Mike. So the breakup with the American will be interesting to see, because obviously, Timo wasn't around for it either, so it's interesting to see what his stance on it is. I don't know if there's something, because he seems like he's a pretty genuine dude. So I wonder if there's something behind the scenes with the way that's gone down. But obviously, UCF fans and Mike Oresco are not sitting down to break bread anytime soon. So it's curious to see how that all shakes out, Mike. But again, stay with us. We'll as we learn or hear more or things come out, we'll certainly make sure we pass it along and we share that with you, Mike. Some other interesting news that we'll get through really quickly here before we get to other stuff that broke on Monday, Mike. So first things first, injury update. Matt Lee. He left the game against Bethune Cookman. Sounds like the diagnosis is a bit of an ankle sprain, a high ankle sprain, kind of mild in nature right now. Seems like he's interested in playing on Friday. Seems like he's not being ruled out on Friday, but it's still a little too early to tell. Cole Schneider stepped in nicely for him at center. Adrian Medley moved over to left guard. And really didn't miss a beat, but again, it was against Bethune Cookman in a part of the game where we already had things pretty much solidified, Mike. So Matt Lee, sort of a question mark right now. How big a deal is this if he can or cannot play against Louisville on Friday?
If he can't play, that is a big deal. I know Cole stepped in and did a good job, but Matt Lee is the number one center on this team. He had a very good year last year as a freshman, and I know he had his one game there where a lot of people were upset with him. But overall, played very well, and everybody knows he's the guy on the offensive line. He makes all the calls. He's the guy Dylan has the most confidence with, the most experience with. So that would be a big loss if he can't play, even if it's just one game. But it sounds like he's going to play. He's a tough kid. I think he's going to get back out there. The injury doesn't sound like it's season-threatening or anything like that. He shouldn't be out more than a week if he's out at all. So I think he'll be in there. And hopefully he's able to play to his full capacity, even with the injury. So something to keep your eye on, for sure.
Yeah, a kid sounds like a gamer, like he wants to get out there and play. It'll just be how much mobility he has and, if he can be effective out there. But sounds like he's been getting treatment around the clock. Gus essentially called him day-to-day, which I guess we all are at this point. So stick close. We'll let you know hopefully we'll know by Thursday, if he'll be in there. But if not, we will let you know, Mike. But somebody who apparently now is going to be with the team, although we do not know his playing status, Gus Malzahn on Monday said Tre'Mon Morris-Brash is back with the team, that he, quote-unquote, still has some things he has to do. So unclear if he's actually eligible or will be playing on Friday. Again, for those who are not familiar, Tre'Mon Morris-Brash received a DUI citation the weekend before the first game against Boise, and obviously subsequently was not with the team the first 2 weeks. Court documents have revealed he has pleaded not guilty to those charges. And so there has been court dates set for the future, Mike. For right now, though, it seems like Gus saying he's back with the team, although we do not know in what capacity, Mike. Do you expect to see Tre'Mon Morris-Brash, and should we see Tre'Mon Morris-Brash?
Based on Gus's answer today, I fully expect to see him on the field this week. Yeah, he could, if he wasn't going to play, it would have been very easy for him to just say, no, he's out again, right? But the fact that he said he's back with the team, what are the couple things he has to do? Say sorry to the team, maybe, and I don't know, run a couple laps after practice. But he's going to be out there. We're talking about a defense now that still, through 2 games, does not have a sack. And he's a big part of this defensive line. Add more depth to the defensive line. I definitely think he's going to play. Now, if he's going to start, I don't know. Maybe not. But he'll be in there. He'll get rotated in during the game. And hopefully he's ready to go, man. This is somebody that we've had a lot of expectations for ever since he had his signing day, or his announcement day, really, that he was coming to UCF. We've seen flashes of potential out of the guy. Last year, we saw maybe he was not in the best playing shape to come into the season. This year seemed like he had everything ready to go. And then, of course, they had this setback before the season. Not something you want to see out of one of your big-time players, but the talent is there, man. Talent rules over everything most of the time. So if he's ready to go and Gus says it's okay, then he'll be out there Friday night.
Well, yeah, unfortunately that the setback was a self-inflicted setback, which makes it even tougher. But, I mean, I think you're right, Mike. And Gus could have easily said, particularly now with the court case still kind of out there in the ether, if Gus did not want him on the team or want him around, he could have easily said, hey, he's going to be out until, this thing resolves itself, which obviously there's court dates and there's things that I'll figure out when that is. So that the fact that he's back with the team obviously leads you to believe that either they're taking the stance of, he served maybe a 2-week suspension and now he's back with the team. He's got to earn his way back on the field, or they're going to take the stance of, while this is still an open matter, they're going to support him until this thing is adjudicated. I don't know. But to your point, I suspect if he's with the team, short of whatever those rules are, he has to now change, or if he has to, again, to your point, apologize, do a bunch of opt-downs. I don't know what it is. But I guess it would be interesting to see how much Gus wants to put him on the field. I don't know much about Gus's history with discipline issues. Obviously, while driving under the influence is never a smart decision, this wasn't a violent crime. So does that change in his mind? Is a 2-game suspension appropriate? So I guess keep your eyes peeled. We'll see if we learn or hear more about TMB's status. But it looks like he's at least back with the team, Mike, which could signal something that I don't know, he could be in the field this Friday night, Mike. Somebody who will be in the field though, apparently next week, Florida State. I don't know why we're a Florida State podcast now, but maybe we are. Florida State released their depth chart for Wake Forest, and no more oars at the top. QB1 is now Mackenzie Milton, Mike. So threw his first touchdown pass against Jacksonville State, which I know we'll get to later on. But KZ now looks like officially named the starter at Florida State. It's probably about time, right?
Yeah, it took him long enough. I mean, we knew this coming into the season. He should be starting over there. It takes Norvell a little longer than everybody else to get things in order, and he's got bigger problems over at Florida State right now. So.
Yes.
At least he's got this thing settled for now.
And then lastly, Monday, news broke that Southern Cal, USC, fired head coach Clay Helton. And Mike, the AD at Southern Cal is the former AD at Cincinnati, Mike Bone. He was the guy who hired Mr. Luke Fickell, and now many of the national football writers are basically saying this is Luke Fickell's job if he wants it. Now, I don't know if there's any chance he would take it mid-season, Mike. That would be I can't think of a time where that's happened. I mean, Bobby Petrino, I guess, was one guy, but he went from the pros to college. So I would highly doubt Luke Fickell would jump after 2 weeks to go to USC right now. But obviously these rumors will be swirling throughout the season, Mike. And, for UCF, we had the Frost stuff where every week that became a thing, but it didn't really bother our team. We went 13-0. So thoughts on Luke Fickell's name now popping up? If I give you $10,000 to say, bet your life savings that if he's going to be able to go mid-season, would you think that's even a possibility that he would go mid-season?
This isn't even mid-season. This is 2 games into the season.
Yeah, even better.
You never see this. Right? You see it leading into the bowl games. It happens all the time. Maybe with a couple weeks to play, you see something like this early. And then for him to leave a team that's a top 10 team right now to go to USC, I don't see it. But, money talks. And USC is a big-time program, one of the biggest football programs in college football. They have the history going back forever. So anything is possible. Normally you just get an interim head coach to finish out the season, right? That's what teams do. You fire your coach, right? You just write it out with the rest of the guys that are there. Yep. What's he going to do? He's going to go over there with his whole staff and leave Cincinnati with nothing? What would he do? Yeah. I can't see it happening, but it'd be great if it did.
If I had to, I agree. Logically, like, how does this even work? The only argument I could talk myself into is saying that it's still early enough that the team in Cincinnati, at least, that he's leaving behind, still has a chance to achieve their goals, right? It's not like it was week 9 and, he was like, hey, I'm going to USC. It's still early enough in the process where Cincinnati still can, have their entire season in front of them and still do something great. But I can't figure out a way in my head this works out unless USC just drops a boat ton of money on Luke Fickell's lap, and he says, you know what, I love my kids here, but I'm out. I just can't see it happening. But rumors, I guess, will swirl throughout the season unless he comes out and denies it or whatever. But we'll see if that impacts Cincinnati's play on the field. Obviously, UCF and Cincinnati was a big matchup on October 16th, which many people will believe will decide the American Conference and, as future Big 12 foes, maybe even begin to ignite a rivalry that's already begun, Mike. So those are the news. Those are the headlines. Those are the notes right off the top of the show. We're going to do one quick break right here. When we get back, breakdown of the game, UCF Bethune Cookman. It was over pretty early, but it was still a lot of fun to watch. Mike and I will give you our categories, what we thought was good, bad, and everything in between. We're going to do that right after this. Sons of UCF.
This is UCF head football coach Gus Malzahn, and you're listening to the Future of UCF podcasting with Adam and Mike on the Sons of UCF. Boom.
All right, Mike. UCF, Bethune Cookman, started off a little bit sluggish, but probably was never really in doubt as the entire game went on. UCF advances to a 2-0 record, coasting to a 63-14 win. There was a lot of good stuff. Usually when we do these categories, sometimes we're reaching for goods, bads, indifference, what's going to happen. A lot of positives you can take out of this game, Mike. It was I always enjoy the games when you get to see some of the third and second stringers, because these are names that we hear about. These are names we get excited about when they come to UCF, when they transfer, when they sign with us. And then sometimes you don't see some of these kids on the field for a while. So it's good to see some of the kids of names that you and I have been talking about on this show for, 1-2 years or whatever, get out there and actually see them play and see them do well. And it's always fun to get everyone involved, Mike. So overall, a nice 63-14 win. And sets UCF up for a 2-0 record heading into Louisville, Mike. But let's start with the categories. Again, if you're new, it's Peach, Liberty on the good side, and it's Hawaii and Boca on the bad side, Mike. I'll let you start off with your first thing. What caught your eye? What category do you want to go with?
Starting off with the Peach like we normally do, the best thing I saw, Ryan O'Keefe, the junior wide receiver out of Austin, Texas, the speedster, with 8 catches, 110 yards, and even threw in a run for 18 yards. Out of his 110 yards, you sent me this stat. 100 of them were yards after the catch. That's pretty impressive. He's getting a lot of balls close to the line of scrimmage and then just doing his damage with his speed. He had 4 catches on one drive, the one that right before the half where he put us up, the one that put us up 21-7. It was an 8-play drive. He had 4 catches on that drive. He did everything in this game except score a touchdown, basically. He was stopped short one time, close to the goal line. Dylan Gabriel had him open at one point in the back of the end zone and just fired it over his head at once. That was going to be his one good shot. But I like what I'm seeing, the way Gus is using him. He's putting him in motion a lot. That's going to lead to some creative play calling. I can see it already setting up in the future. With him going in motion, and sometimes you're handing it off to him, sometimes you're faking it to him, then you throw it off to him on a screen. I can see him throwing a pass off this thing. I think he's the one that threw the pass in the spring game, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
So I see a lot of potential out of this kid. We obviously saw it last year when he shined in that Memphis game when he just took off like a bullet, man. It was 92 yards. So Ryan O'Keefe had a great game. Looking forward to more out of him, and this is just the start for him.
Well, what's interesting is looking at some of the deeper stats on Dylan Gabriel's passing game. He was 11 of 12, Gabriel was, from behind the line of scrimmage. So we threw basically 11 of 12 balls behind the line of scrimmage for 132 yards and 1 touchdown. And that was the most yards he threw for of any of the groupings between, short, which is 0 to 9, medium 10 to 19, or deep at 20 plus. 11 or 12, Mike. 11 or 12 from behind the line of scrimmage. A lot of those were to Ryan O'Keefe. Some of those design sets, you could tell Malzahn had said, in the presser that he had tried to find ways to get O'Keefe the ball, and they definitely got creative with it. And when he got the ball in his hands, to your point, with 100 yak yards out of the 110, obviously it goes to show you that they want to get this kid in space and give him room to run.
It's basically like having another running back, right? It's just longer handoffs. Behind the line of scrimmage, they gave Bowser some rest that way, and get the ball in O'Keefe's hands, because once this kid's in space, he's hard to get to. So I like the way Gus is using him, and Gus is just utilizing his players, seeing what their strengths are and taking advantage of it. And now we saw him use O'Keefe as a star player this week.
That's a good option, Mike. I think he's a good complement to some of the other receivers that we have there. Brandon Johnson seems to be a very capable possession-style receiver. You need a big catch in the end zone, he's there for you. Obviously, we know Jay Flash is your deep threat. O'Keefe kind of being that wild card where you kind of put him over the middle or get him out of the backfield, get him in space, get his speed in use. Definitely gives UCF a lot of weapons on the receiving core, which is something we were hoping for, right? We didn't quite know because the receiving core had so much turnover over last year. But so far, so good on the receiving core, and Ryan O'Keefe is a big reason for that, Mike. So that's a good one. I'm going to start with Peach as well. I'm going to go to the running game, Mike, and I'm going to go the running game as a whole because obviously in this particular ball game, you saw a lot of different guys have the ability to carry the ball here. So here's just the overall team stats: 290 total rushing yards. That's 6.9 yards per carry. They had 6 rushing touchdowns. Mike, incredibly, throughout the day, they only lost 5 yards total. So they had basically 5 negative yards rushing. And again, no turnovers, which is just fantastic. You always want to see your running backs and the guys running the ball protect it. Here's another fun stat, Mike. Stop me if you ever would have thought I said this. Throughout the game, and in the running game in particular, there were 0 offensive line penalties.
Wow.
Not one penalty on the offensive line, 3 total, 2 pass interference, and 1 on special teams. No penalties in the O-line, which goes to show those big boys up front were carving up holes and giving guys room to run, space to run in, and no penalties, a clean ledger, particularly when you had an injury like we talked about with Matt Lee, and you got a new guy in Adrian Medley coming in. But probably the guy you got to be happiest for, Mike, Trillian Coles, 11 carries, 78 yards, and a touchdown. Here's a kid who's coming back from an injury. We've seen him in flashes before. We've seen him in spurts. But to get in there, again, he looked fresh. He looked like he was quick. He was fast. He caught a ball off the backfield as well. If you don't feel happy for Trillian Coles after everything that he's been through, went on scholarship earlier this year, that's just a cool story to see a kid like that get a chance and make the most of it.
Yeah, he looked great. He looked very quick out there. He got 2 touchdowns for him. I was very happy for him. The running game overall was great again. Bowser with 4 more touchdowns. What is there not to like with this group? And then they mixed it in with everybody. You got Mark Anthony Richards out there for a few carries.
Yeah.
You got Joey Gatewood running the Wild Night package. It was a thing of beauty, man. I mean, we just wore down Bethune. We only had about 70-something yards at the half rushing.
Yep.
But then really turned it on there in the second half just to run out the clock. The penalties thing, that's really interesting. Remember last year we were averaging about 11 penalties per game.
Yep.
We had about 6 false starts on one drive against East Carolina to start the game, holding penalties all over the place. If that's cleaned up now and we're not beating ourselves, we're going to be a very hard team to beat this year.
Well, you mentioned Bowser. He had 12 carries for 62 yards, so a bit of a drop-off from the 33 carries he had, but he did have 4 touchdowns. Joey Gatewood, he got in the game late. He kind of ran that old Gus Malzahn Auburn package, the Wild Night quarterback thing. He had 3 for 30. Mark Anthony Richards got in the game for the first time, at least in the running position. He had 4 for 25. Even true freshman Anthony Williams got in the game. 5 carries for 19 yards. And then there's Dylan Gabriel, Mike. He had 2 for 44 and a touchdown. He had, in that that play that he had, late in the game, he had, a 65-yard, 44-yard touchdown run because he ran all the way to one sideline, ran all the way across the back. Didn't seem like he got touched at all, and he ran it in. Everybody who wanted to run the football was able to do so, and that was definitely a good sign because the running game is obviously something that UCF didn't always do a great job of establishing the last couple of seasons. To see that Gus has made it a priority and all these guys are getting carries and making an impact is really important and definitely cool to see.
Yep. I think UCF put out a tweet. I don't know if it's official, but it seems to make sense. That run by Dylan Gabriel was actually 110 yards.
Yeah, it sounds right. Yeah.
It was only 40 because he went to both sidelines during that run. It was pretty funny. And Gus said he just wanted him to go out of bounds or get down at some point. But he never really got close to being touched or anything in that whole run. He followed his blockers all the way down the end. So that was a thing of beauty, too.
Yeah, it was a smart play. I don't think he took any risks or any chances. He didn't really put himself in harm's way. He set up blockers nicely. Obviously, I guess you could tweak an ankle or a hamstring or something. But, I thought actually it turned out to be a pretty safe run when you kind of look it back and see where it was. Really, the only thing that probably scratching people's head, Demarius Good did not get in the game, did not get a carry. There's some rumors that maybe he's got a hamstring he's nursing, so that may be why he didn't get in. But obviously, that's the other running back that we haven't seen a lot from, and Demarius Good, Mike. But we mentioned this last week. Bowser took obviously a heavy workload in week 1. We knew he couldn't keep that up, but we were curious who was going to be that back to come in and spell him, Mike. Any chance in your mind that's Trillian Coles? I mean, has he done enough to earn that, or do you kind of chalk it up to competition and who he's playing against? Because I got to tell you, when we see him play, and again, granted, it's been late in games against maybe second and third string guys, he typically carries the ball really well and is explosive. Any chance that it's Trillian Coles that maybe sneaks in there? Do you think this helps his cause at all to get maybe more carries and more meaningful parts of future games?
There's definitely a chance. And just before we started recording tonight, Gus Malzahn had his weekly show with Mark Daniels, and they were asking about Trillian Coles, and he said he's running with the ones this week a little bit in practice.
Wow.
So he is definitely impressed Malzahn after this showing this week. He says he does everything right. He can run, he can catch, he can block, he does everything you ask. So I don't want to say that he's passed over Johnny Richardson yet, but he's going to be right up there now with him. Him and Mark Anthony Richards better watch out because Trillian Coles is here. He's been waiting his turn. He finally gets a chance to show what he can do. I know it's against Bethune, but he's going to be given opportunities now against some of these other schools along the way and see what he can do.
By the way, Mike, my peach goes to the running game, a dominant performance against Bethune Cookman. Mike, your next category is what?
The Liberty. And you kind of touched on it a little, but getting everyone in the game and mostly getting out healthy. 3 quarterbacks got to play in this game. 4 if you count Gatewood. But Mikey Keene got to get in there. We got to see the first look at him, 4 for 7 for 55 yards with a touchdown to Caden Robinson. Dylan Gabriel, for me, stayed in one drive too long. It was already 42-7. He had just come off that long run to make it 42-7. I would have taken him out right there. Gus leaves him in for another drive, and he comes back and he throws the touchdown to Trillian to get us to 49-14. I wonder if it's because Bethune scored to make it 42-14, but really that shouldn't have made an impact in the decision. If something would have happened to Dylan at that point, we would have gone nuts, right? He takes a cheap shot or something like that. So, but it was nice to see everybody else get in the game. Like I said, you count Gatewood, there's 4 quarterbacks to play because Quadri got in there too. 6 different running backs you just mentioned. You have to run the ball. 8 wide receivers caught passes in this game. And first and second string defense all got to play. Everybody got some experience. That's going to come in handy later in the season if somebody has to step in for an injury. At least now they've been in live action. Gus knows what to expect out of these guys now. The one injury, the big injury to Matt Lee, right now he's day-to-day. Hopefully he's playing on Friday. I think he's going to play on Friday. I'd be surprised if he doesn't. The only position where we didn't see a lot of people play, kicker. Obarski's the only one that's done all the kicks, right? Did I miss something? Did somebody else kick an extra point later in this game that I don't remember?
No, your sobriety was good.
Well, I don't know about that. but yeah, it's good to see everybody come in and get some action in a game like this. There's a lot of teams across this country that played so-called cupcake games this week, and a lot of them were a lot closer than they wanted it to be, and probably they didn't get to do this. So Gus mentioned it in his press conference after the game. It could have gotten ugly. It could have gotten sloppy. The guys stayed focused. They did what they had to do. The second team came in, and they took care of business, and they played very well too. So very good signs coming out of this team as a very well-rounded football team.
Yeah, like I said, it's always cool to see these names that we've talked about on the show. I feel like every year we tick off all these guys that we'd like, oh, we've got this guy, we've got that guy, and then we don't see a lot of them on the field. It was cool to see some of these kids get a chance to play. Again, the quarterback stuff was really cool to see everyone get a chance to get in there. Deontay Marks, even though he went out with an injury, he caught 2 passes. He's a name that I know we've talked about. I saw Jordan Johnson, the Notre Dame transfer, on the field for a period of time. We saw Nate Craig Myers. He was on the field for a period of time. So to see some of the names that we keep talking about, Anthony Williams, a true freshman running back that we heard some good things about. It's really cool, I think, to get these kids in the game. And again, to your point, you never know in this experience, will come in handy. You never know when you'll need one of these guys to come in and step in. I mean, heck, Mike, we saw this in Florida State where the helmet pops off. All of a sudden, someone's got to run in the game. So one of these guys could be one of those guys running in the game. So to get them in the game, to get them experience, to get them in front of their friends and family, and the UCF student body is always a cool thing.
Yep, and these guys have their parents come to games, and it would suck if this was turned out to be a close game. We would have had to play Dillon the whole time, So these guys got some experience now. Some of them true freshmen, some of them transfers that haven't played at UCF before, and the fans get excited to watch these guys play too. I know I did.
All right, I'm gonna go Liberty. You kind of touched on my Liberty. I'm gonna go with the special teams as a whole. Mike, this was an area that I know I talked about probably annoyingly enough for a few different shows about my concern about how special teams would go, particularly in the kicking game, particularly in the return game. So here are just some things to think about. Obarski kicked off 10 times in this game. Mike, he had 6 touchbacks. The average starting field position for Bethune Cookman was their own 20, which is pretty solid. I mean, it's a pretty good, from a defensive perspective. He was also 9 of 9 on extra points. Obviously, he did not get a chance to kick a field goal. I think Gus is avoiding that at all costs at this point. But everything we asked Obarski to do, kickoffs, extra points, everything went off well. In the return game, we averaged 20 yards per return on kickoffs, Mike. Johnny Richardson opened up the game with a 39-yard kick. I thought he had a seam there, couldn't quite break it. We had 11 yards on punt returns on average. Amari had a 14-yard return. Titus had a 13-yard return later in the game. Only had 1 penalty in special teams. It was a hold late in the game. That was an area where last year, Mike, it felt like we got a lot of dumb penalties. The Alex Ward helmet toss comes to mind. So the discipline on special teams seems to get better. Gus even referenced in his press conference that we got really close to breaking a few, and I assume he's referring to either the Johnny or the Amari runs. Amari said that he's going to break one on Twitter. It feels like at least we're getting some positive momentum out of special teams. If I had to give anything, Osteen didn't have a fantastic punt. I mean, it was a short field, though, and he pinned him inside the 20, so I'll give him credit for that, Mike. But Obarski's been solid, at least in the things we've seen him do thus far. And the return game looks like it's trying to get itself worked out, trying to get itself in gear. So I think we've got a special teams that's, the arrow is pointing upward. So I'll give him my Liberty, Mike, because last year I felt like special teams was just kind of like a forgotten element of the game. This year it feels like we're actually making some moves, and we're being way more consistent with our third phase.
10 kickoffs this game, 0 of them went out of bounds. How many kickoffs in week 1? None of those went out of bounds either. There's already progress out of Obarski. Yeah, we haven't seen him kick a field goal yet, but let's not act like every field goal is going to be a 50-yarder. Mm-hmm. I mean, some of these field goals are going to be 20, 35 yards too, and that's not much further than a extra point. Should be able to hit those. It's the pressure situations, right? The one when the game's on the line that we're scared if he's going to hit or not. And he wouldn't have had that situation in this game either. There was no pressure in this game. We were up the entire way. So if anything, that would have happened in the Boise game. It just didn't present himself to kick a field goal in that game. So he's going to kick a field goal eventually as the season goes along. At some point, we are going to have to kick a field goal. It's going to be 4th and 15, and there's no sense in going for it. So we'll see it when it happens. But overall, the return game is looking solid. I do feel like Amari Johnson or Johnny Richardson is going to break one. Those guys have speed. You can see it. Amari Johnson on one punt looked like he had it. If he would have cut back to the right just a second earlier, I think he would have had something there. I do believe at some point this season we'll see a nice return for a touchdown.
Yeah, it feels like it's setting up that way. And again, having that phase of the game would just be huge. And again, no penalties, no turnovers to 2 games. The penalty thing in general is really cleaned up, Mike. There were a handful against Boise, a couple of Marcus Tatum, against some bad defensive pass interference penalties here against Bethune. But I mean, we were a team that was averaging double-digit penalties a game. And at this point right now, Mike, I mean, that's absolutely been cleaned up overall. So you gotta like the discipline and the approach that the coaching staff has taken. But special teams is definitely an area where you hopefully you see some marked improvement, and hopefully that improvement will lead to some results here before the end of the year is up, Mike. All right, you get one final category. So many things to choose from, Mike. Where are you gonna go?
Well, you try to pick something bad. And there's not much bad that happened in this game. But I will give Boca to the drop passes. There were a bunch of them. I believe there were at least 6 drop passes. I counted at least 4 in the first half on Dillon Gabriel throws. I'm talking balls that hit guys directly in the hands, wide open, and they couldn't do it. Hescock dropped what would have been an easy touchdown. Holler, it was a long pass, but he kind of let one go through his hand. Brandon Johnson, who's supposed to be as short-handed as they come, and Dillon seems to be favoring him as a safety blanket type receiver. He dropped one. So those things don't hurt in games against Bethune. You drop one and you still convert a 3rd and 10 anyway. But let's not get this to be a habit, and let's not have this carry over to next week. We already know the issues we had with this last season. This was an issue. The receivers dropped a lot of passes. The Cincinnati game comes to mind. There were a bunch of drop passes there. This something that could bite us down the road. It kind of hurt Dillon Gabriel's stat line a little bit. He was 23 for 36, 312 yards. He could have easily been 27 for 36 and put up over 350, 360 if these guys just hang on to the ball, maybe a couple more touchdowns. But yeah, it's something we got to correct, and it cannot be something that we keep going throughout the season with these drop passes, because it will hurt us.
I mean, this is a perfect synergy to my third category, Mike. It's also a Boca. It's the tight ends. So echoing the same thing that you're talking about right now, we had all said, hey, under the Gus Malzahn system, will we see more tight end play? Why didn't Heupel ever use the tight end? How come we never even experienced that? Well, maybe we know why now. Like you mentioned, Jake Hescock, he had a wide open 1st and 10, first quarter, wide open, literally just dropped it. The next play luckily turned into a 22-yard touchdown pass to Brandon Johnson, but that could have been Hescock's 22-yard touchdown pass. You mentioned Alec Holler, one down the sideline there. He probably could have brought that in. He looked like he got a little bit just out of sorts with his steps. Obviously didn't make a play there, although he did make a good play the week prior. Marsh Rojan got into the game later. He had a drop as well, Mike. We had a poll before the season on would the tight ends collectively as a tight end group, would they have more than 24.5 catches as a tandem, Mike? Through 2 games, do you have any guess how many tight end catches we have?
Well, we know Holler had the touchdown, I believe. I don't even know if Hescock caught one in the first game, maybe 1. So I will say 2 to 3.
2 is the correct answer. Alec Holler credited with 2 catches for 29 yards, including that touchdown. Steven Martin caught a pass at garbage time here against Bethune. He's listed as a wide receiver, though, so I don't know if he counts as a tight end. He's listed as a wide receiver, so his mama called him a wide receiver. I'm going to call him a wide receiver. So out of 2 games, we have 2 tight end catches, which means we're going to need another 23 in the rest of the season to get above that mark, Mike. Maybe we were incorrect. Maybe there was a reason why we weren't using the tight end. Maybe their skill sets are more suited for the blocking variety. Kind of surprised we have not seen anything from Charlie Browder yet. He seemed like a pretty big target in the spring game. We have not yet seen him on the field, Mike. But overall, the tight ends, obviously, those drops were huge. And listen, there's no better friend for a quarterback than a sure-handed tight end that can turn around and get him some tough yards on a 3rd and short or 4th and short. Hopefully, you don't want to say, hey, one game is going to make an entire position group, but definitely not the best showing from the tight ends, and hopefully more will be had throughout the season, Mike. But my Boca is going to go to the tight ends.
Yeah, they're on pace for 12 catches this year. This keeps up. Not even close to the prop bet that we were talking about. You see that Gus wants to get him involved. He's trying to throw the ball to him. We saw a touchdown in the first game. We saw what should have been another touchdown this game. That would have been 2 games in a row with a tight end touchdown if Hescock can just catch an easy one. So I'm not saying – at least we're throwing to him, and there are options there. So maybe that'll pick up here in a game. Maybe there'll be a game where one of these guys has 4 or 5 catches, and things will start to straighten out in that department. But not looking great at first. But, when you have so many other weapons, it's not something that's killing us either. We got plenty of receivers that can move the ball for us.
Well, you can tell that Gus is very strategic in his play calling, right? I think he has different packages for different plays, puts different guys on the field for those packages. You could tell that play was designed, for the tight end for Hescock that he dropped. So what you don't want is a coach to lose confidence that, that's a play that you can execute, and then it kind of gets just stripped from the playbook, because even that touchdown pass to Alec Holler, you could tell that was a bit of a setup, the way that he had things motioning and the way he had Holler kind of breaking across the other side of the formation. So hopefully he continues to keep his trust in those tight ends, because it seems like he's got some strategic situations where he wants to use those plays. And obviously, if you don't think your guys can execute them, that's probably going to preclude that from being called. So hopefully we get that figured out, Mike. But those are the categories. Again, a lot to be really pleased about. You kind of have to nitpick a little bit when you go 63-14, like you mentioned. UCF, I think they scored on 8 drives in a row. I think it was touchdown, punt, and then they scored 8 more times to close the game out. A lot of good things overall, a lot of good performances, and really the two things that we want to get out of the game like this is you want to get out without any injuries. The Matt Lee thing is certainly a bit of unfortunate. Hopefully that won't be too serious. And you want to get some guys some more game shape, some more game practice, and you got a lot of that too. So overall, Mike, a win on the scoreboard and a win overall as a program.
Yep, and that's that really matters. Getting that W. We're 2-0 now. On to next week. Big game coming up at Louisville. So that's it. Overall, it's a very clean game. Like you mentioned, no big penalties, mostly injury-free, except for Matt Lee and Deontay Marks. So a good quality win at home. And now we're away from the bounce house for a little while. We got this game here in Louisville. Then there's a bye. Then we're at Navy. So no more bounce house for a little bit. And hopefully we come back home still undefeated.
And we will certainly be here to chronicle it all, Mike. And coming up next, we're going to go through our UCF observations, always maybe our favorite part of the show, and then Saturday's headlines today, Mike. But before we get to that, we have a new sponsor we want to share with you guys a little bit about, Mike. We got a company that we're doing a little work with here. Somebody that I know you've got a lot of experience with, Mike. Let's talk a little bit more about sort of the newest member of the Sons of UCF family.
Very close to home for me, as close as you can get, actually. My sister has her own company. And, we talk on this show a bunch of times, football season is for football only, right? What's the one thing we hate during football season? Somebody that's going to have a wedding during football season. Those are the worst friends you can have. But if you are to have a wedding, what my sister does is provides you with the best and the nicest wedding invitations you will find. And you go to her website, paperandlaceboutique.com. Check out her stuff. It's amazing, the stuff that she's had. Go to her Instagram page, Paper and Lace. Any kind of design you can think of, she's done it. It's incredible. The girl has talent that I never knew she had, and I lived my whole life growing up in the same house with this person. Just beautiful stuff. If you go to her website and you check this stuff out and you give her a call, 954-597-6426, tell her you heard it here on the Sons of UCF, 10% off your order. 10%, right? They ship anywhere. Just because she's here in Fort Lauderdale, she'll ship anywhere in the country. Yeah. So that is not a problem. I'm telling you, go to her gallery. You've never seen anything like it. These things are incredible. She can do football designs if you want. I know most women are not into that for their wedding, but anything is an option when it comes to paper and lace. Paperandlaceboutique.com. I'm telling you, it's not just for weddings. You have a big Sweet 16 party. You want to throw some invitations, some fancy invitations out for that. She can hook you up with that too. Anything. She'll take care of the place cards on your wedding day. All kinds of stuff. There's something called a vow book. I didn't even know that existed, but she takes care of all those things. The things that go on your tables, everything. The save the dates. It's some of the nicest stuff you'll ever find. I'm telling you, go check her out today. I know there's a bunch of people out there listening to this that have a wedding, that just got engaged probably, or have a wedding coming up in spring. They don't know what to do. Go check out my sister's website, paperandlaceboutique.com. Check out her designs. 10% off your orders if you mention Sons of UCF.
And guys, here's what you want to do, because the last thing you want to do is be involved in wedding invitations. You're going to have to act like you want to be involved in it, because your fiance is going to be like, hey, look at these, and you have to figure out like, oh my God, how do I do this? Here's what you do. You go to your fiance and be like, hey, I heard about this great place. We can get our wedding invitations. You might be off the hook. Give her the in to the good place, and maybe that'll qualify for your involvement in the invitation process. Because believe me, it's not something you want to be a part of. So listen to Mike's advice. I would definitely hit that website up, paperandlaceboutique.com now, and go give that to your fiance. Let her know this is what we can do, and then turn the UCF game on. You're welcome.
Yeah, you will. I'm telling you, when your fiance sees these things, she's gonna think you're a genius, because they are incredible. They really are. I'm not just saying that she's my sister. She's been doing this now for a few years, and she's starting her own. She started her own business out of nothing. She's now opening up a shop, an actual brick and mortar store that's right around the corner from us. You're gonna be able to go in there, and she's been doing it from home for a while, but now she's moving big time. She's big time now, and doing great at it. So I'm very proud of her. And I'm telling you guys right now, do yourself a favor, check it out. You will not regret it. Great deals, 10% off. What else do you want from me?
Well, what we want is UCF Observations, and those are right after these words.
This is UCF Athletic Director Tre'Mon, and in my spare time, when I'm not on TikTok, I'm listening to Adam and Mike on the Sons of UCF. Go Knights and charge on.
All right, my favorite part of the show, Mike, it challenges me each week to come up with funny one-liners of things that we observed. A lot of things happen during the game that we just can't cover because we don't have all that much time and we have a lot of things to get to. So this is a little fun opportunity for us to just give you some other notes, some thoughts, some things that are on our mind as we watch these games, Mike. We call these UCF Observations, and I will let you kick it off. What's your first observation?
Our time on ESPN Plus is Netflix on steroids, and I've made it mandatory family viewing from now on. I made the family sit down and watch this thing, and that's going to be a weekly occurrence around this house.
That's nice. That's a wise parenting decision on your part, Mike. I don't know if you noticed this, but Devod Wilson and Amari Johnson were both wearing gold wristbands on their arms throughout the game. We know defensive coaches have been wearing gold polos, Mike. Does this mean gold is back?
We mentioned that last week. It's not gone.
Maybe with that new Adidas deal, everybody pay attention to that, by the way.
There you go. Never did I think that watching a board of trustees meeting would bring me to tears. Yet here we are. They were streaming down my face, but I had to hold them back. Let's put it that way.
Parker Navarro, Tennessee quarterback room, collision course. That poor kid didn't get in the game. I don't know if he's injured. I hope he's not injured. Obviously, he's a Josh Heupel recruit. Joey Gatewood comes in. He's already got a package of plays. Mikey Keene is obviously established himself as QB2 right now. Quadri's been in the system for a long time. We got Castellanos coming in as a true freshman. Parker Navarro is going to look great in that orange and white.
Yeah, that's probably going to happen soon. Thank goodness the Big 12 is getting rid of their trash teams, like Texas, who just got destroyed by Arkansas 40-21. These guys are always the most overrated team in the country.
Mike, speaking of Mikey Keene, do you know what the K in Mikey Keene stands for?
No.
Kid can play. He looked good. He looked good.
Yeah, he did look good. Very good. He made that nice touchdown throw on the run. That was not an easy play. It was a fourth down play, too.
Yeah.
I mentioned the trash team. Speaking of trash, Tampa was full of it on Saturday, where the Jort wearers won the Trailer Trash Bowl over the Booger Eaters, 42-20. That game, I don't know what to say about that game. One, Emory Jones, I don't know how he's still playing quarterback for those guys. He doesn't look that good. And the Gators couldn't even cover. They had to cover most of the game and blew it there at the end.
Yeah, if they're not running sprints this week for giving up 20 points to the Cows, I don't know what to tell you. Mike, allegedly, one of our future conference mates, Kansas, has expressed some concern about UCF joining the Big 12 because of our basketball standing. In a related story, Kansas football lost 49-22 at Coastal Carolina this weekend, dropping their football record since 2010 to a robust 22 wins and 109 losses.
Yeesh. So I guess the winning streak came to an end. One in a row, and that was it.
That was it.
All right. First, there was the shaking of the keys on kickoffs. Then there was Zombie Nation. And now the newest UCF tradition, lightning delays before every home game.
There we are. There we are, the weather delay. Can't beat it. This one was a lot shorter, which is fantastic, Mike. All right, I feel like everyone wants to talk about this. This is on everyone's mind. We all recognize it, so I'm just going to be the guy to say it, Mike. I was really surprised when I saw what the Bethune Cookman quarterback looked like. I mean, he was a lot taller than I thought he was going to be.
All right. I'm not touching that one.
He was tall. I didn't think he'd be that tall.
Uh-huh. Bowser ties a long-standing Polk High record set by the great Al Bundy. 4 touchdowns in one game. I think I called this last week, right? In the headlines, I said 3 touchdowns in the first half.
He did.
He did that. 4 touchdowns, one game.
This NLI stuff is really paying off, Mike. A lot of UCF guys I saw over the weekend released their Rock'em Socks collection. I think I saw Isaiah Bowser, I saw Titus, I saw Jalen Robinson. I cannot wait for the Zamari Maxwell Rock'em Sock drops. What do you think is more obvious? What do you think is more likely here, though? Serious question. Do we see Zamari Maxwell socks or UCF problem socks first? Which one?
I don't know how there's not problem socks already. And by the way, can we get a Sons of UCF socks going? What do we got to do for that?
I feel like we're always second place on these things. We're always behind in terms of podcast swag. But I can't. I'm in first in line for those Zamari Maxwell whenever they drop.
I mean, our hats are a big hit, and our polos are not bad.
That's fair.
All right. This weekend was almost upset Saturday, and all around the place. Cincinnati tied 7-7 with Murray State at the half. They ended up pulling away. Notre Dame gets by Toledo 32-29. Close one there. Miami holds on against Appalachian State 25-23. And Jacksonville State almost lost to Florida State. They pulled that one out 20-17.
That's true.
So close on a lot of upsets. No big ones.
Mike, speaking of Florida State, an offensive lineman for Florida State proposed to his girlfriend on the field following that loss to Jacksonville State. And I got to tell you, Mike, you got to be really sure about that one because that would be a tough doubleheader L to take if you don't know how that one's going to turn out. I got to give the kid some credit. He must have really had some inside info to know that was going to go his way because if that goes the other direction, that's a tough doubleheader L to swallow.
Do we know she said yes? I don't know if we do because all I know is that he asked her.
Well, I saw on social media someone had tweeted it and he followed up and said, "Here's our registry if you want to get us something." So I assume that means yes, but yeah, you got to be really sure on that one, and particularly after that kind of game.
Hopefully for him, that thing turns out better than the game.
Yeah.
Dylan Gabriel with the longest 40-yard run in football history.
It's true.
Like I mentioned earlier, I believe it was 110 yards of running.
Mike, speaking of Florida State, do you know what the N in Norvell stands for?
No brains?
Next Willie Taggart. That's the way this thing is starting to shake out right now.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, yeah, Willie, he lost to who? McNeese State, I believe, in his first game. You know your team is good when the biggest complaint is we haven't kicked any field goals because we're too busy scoring too many touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good sign.
Yeah. Mike, in 2018, Josh Heupel had a starting quarterback named Milton throw for 328 yards and 4 touchdowns in a 45-14 win against Pitt. In 2021, Josh Heupel had a starting quarterback named Milton throw for 50 yards and 0 touchdowns in a 41-34 loss to Pitt. Life comes at you fast, Josh.
How did they keep it so close if the quarterback only threw for 50 yards?
I think he got benched at some point.
All right. If you can't make it to the game, going to one of these watch parties is the next best thing. I had a great time at the Southeast Alumni Watch Party. I'm going back there Friday night. I hear it's Fireball Friday, baby. So I'm pumped up for that one.
That's going to be good for everybody, Mike. Well, speaking of Friday, UCF is going to travel up to Louisville to play the Cardinals. Mike, I did some research. I learned up to a few seasons ago, Louisville Stadium was called Papa John's Stadium, named after the founder of Papa John's. That was summarily taken down because he's got some craziness issues, Mike. But that really means nothing other than it allows me to give you my top 5 list of chain pizza restaurants, Mike. I happen to have my top 5 right here. Chain pizza restaurants. Are you ready for this top 5? I don't know if you're prepared. I know I don't prep you well for these, and I don't know if you have time to think about it. But I have it crumbled up in pieces of paper right now. I've got my top 5 chain pizza restaurant. This is going to be exciting.
I'm not prepared. I didn't think about this at all. I didn't know you were hitting me with this, but go ahead. I'd like to hear.
All right, here we go. So number 5, again, these are chain restaurants. I'm trying to find, restaurants that people would know. So number 5, Mike, Domino's Pizza, number 5.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I usually don't go to or get pizza from chain restaurants, but go ahead. Domino's. I've had Domino's before. Yes.
Okay, good for you. Number 4, Mike, Pizza Hut. And back in the day, when you went to the original Pizza Hut, the actual restaurants with the huts, and they're at the pizza at the table, and they had the salad bar, there was nothing better as a kid than actually going to a Pizza Hut. I think they closed all those down, Mike. Those are all not like Edwin Watts golf shops or something, but the Pizza Hut, number 4.
Yeah, Pizza Hut was a big deal as a kid. There was one by my school on a Friday. Sometimes my mom would let us go over there. Yeah, the pan pizza. Remember, they were the first ones that came out with that. That was a big deal too.
Yeah. Number 3, Mike. This may be controversial. CC's Pizza. You cannot beat that $4.99 pizza buffet. When we were in college, we would hit that CC's up. I think it was on Colonial and Alafaya right there in the little plaza there. We did that CC's up. I don't know how long the pizza been out there for. You basically got whatever slices they had for you. But for $5, Mike, pizza buffet, there's nothing better than a good CC's pizza.
We definitely got our money's worth.
Yes,
I'll tell you that.
Yeah. I'm not saying it was good, but we got our money's worth.
Yeah. I don't know. The slices were so small that it doesn't count how many slices, but it's probably like 30 of those little tiny slices you could go through.
At least. Now, I don't know if this is a chain. I think they have a few different places. Like number 2, Lazy Moon. We actually hit the Lazy Moon up when we were in town for the Boise game. Their single slices are like the size of your forearm. I mean, they're giant slices of pizza. Nice beers on tap if you're into that kind of thing. Cool little atmosphere, Mike. Lazy Moon, number 2. My number 2 chain pizza place.
This may come as a surprise, and I gotta tell you, I don't think I've ever been to Lazy Moon.
I didn't think. Yeah, it wasn't there when you and I were there. It's a late arrival there, but yeah, it's a solid slice of pie.
And you're saying it's a chain? They're everywhere. I don't think
I'm
there's
not
one
sure it's a
here.
chain or not, but it's in Orlando. It's UCF. I mean, what are you gonna? It's my list, Mike. What are you gonna do?
All right, you said chain restaurants.
I mean, it might be chain. I was wearing a chain. I don't know what's the difference.
Was it good?
It was good. It was delish. Yeah, it was. Now, if you actually get a real pizza pie, Mike, the size of the pizza box is probably like the size of like a 55-inch TV. No joke.
All right.
Yeah, you might
check it out next time.
Yeah, check that out. And my number 1 chain pizza restaurant, Mike, is give me some Mellow Mushroom. Big Mellow Mushroom fan. You give me the Mighty Meaty. They got a lot of beers on tap. I typically go Blue Moon. Sometimes I go with a Lost Coast Tangerine Wheat to wash down that. The pretzels are really good. They have some cookies that the kids usually get overall. Give me Mellow Mushroom. Probably controversial. Why am I Mel Kiper, by the way? Give me Mellow Mushroom as my number 1 chain pizza restaurant.
Another one. I believe I've walked into a Mellow Mushroom once late night, but just for a drink. I don't think I even ate when I was there, so I can't even tell you if it's good or not.
All right, well, that's my top 5 chain pizza restaurants.
All right. Back to our regularly scheduled program.
Here we go.
Last one for me. I told you about Overtime on ESPN Plus. I love it, but games on ESPN Plus can just go to hell. Yeah, right there with Don Williams. I hope that was our last game on ESPN Plus. It screwed up everything at the watch party. First of all, when you walk in, the guy tells you got to turn off your Wi-Fi because he's scared of the bandwidth is going to go out because he's got 5 TVs going with I don't know how he's running it, the ESPN Plus on there, and all the TVs are on different times and the sound was off. Good thing it was just a Bethune game and you can kind of shake it off. But I'm done with ESPN Plus games.
Yeah, well, I mean, we should. Yeah, let's just end it on that because it was not a fantastic broadcast experience. Although Leger Duzable was on the call, so always good to have a night in the booth, Mike. So those are UCF observations. Let's transition now. We will tell you what's going to happen before it actually happens. So Mike and I are not newspaper writers. Maybe we should be, Mike, because we've gotten a lot of these pretty close to being correct in some of our picks here. So these are going to be Saturday's headlines today. Obviously, UCF plays on a Friday. So when you turn on your phone or if you read a newspaper and you want to read a headline of what happened, Mike and I are going to help you out. We'll tell you what happens right now, Mike. So Saturday's headlines today. We're on a good hot streak here, Mike. What do you got for one of your first headlines?
Flipping the birds. Knights beat Louisville 43-20. And I see a picture already right under the headline of our buddy UCF Probs. He's going to be at the game, actually sticking up his middle finger and screaming towards the Louisville bench.
Gotcha. That's a solid one. Yeah. Actually, I see all those things happening. That makes a lot of sense. All right, here's my first one. Take a bow, sir. Knights running back fuels solid rushing attack, finds end zone 2 times.
All right. Yeah, Bowser's been in the headlines every week.
We're running out of Bowser headlines. I take a bow, sir. Is really. I think I've tapped out all my Bowser options at this point. So hopefully this is his last. Hopefully not. But this may be the last time he features in headlines. Take a bow, sir.
Knights make Louisville sluggish.
Oh,
yeah, I like that one.
Yeah.
Knights run defense continues to dominate, allowing only 56 yards rushing. This has been. I don't know if it's a surprise, but how good has this run defense been? We're averaging 22 yards given up on the ground so far over 2 games. You expect that against Bethune. You didn't really expect it going into the Boise game. I think it's a big key to this Louisville game. If we can keep that up and shut down the run, that'd be huge in going towards the win this week.
That's a good call. Yeah, the run defense has been, the shining star so far. A lot of people a little bit disillusioned with the secondary. Travis Williams, said basically in the press conference that the goal is to keep the top on the defense, and they were willing to give up some underneath stuff, but they are obviously going to work on that and make sure they're not giving too much of a cushion. So obviously you can't have it all. Sounds like T. Will's got at least a plan and understanding of where they are. We'll see how that hurts us, but you can definitely not argue with the run defense, Mike. Here's my second headline. Gabriel shuffles the cards. Junior quarterback throws 3 touchdowns to 3 different receivers.
Yeah, I like it. It's similar to my next one, the way it's going. But my headline is maybe a little more adult, let's say.
Oh boy.
Gabriel flashes Big Johnson.
Put that on a rock'em sock.
Uses 2 favorite targets to beat Cardinals. I got Flash going for 8 catches, 140 yards and a touchdown, and Brandon Johnson, let's give him another 7 catches, 120 and 2 touchdowns. I think that he's going to be lighting them up with these 2 guys all night.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan's been, obviously, the 2 turnovers against Boise are one thing, but he had a solid performance. He definitely improved. I know one of the things I had said in week 1 after Boise was I want to see a little bit more of a sharp execution on the passing game in particular. That certainly took place against Bethune. Now, again, is that competition or is that just the way that was schemed up? Either way, hopefully gives them some confidence, gives them some muscle memory going into a big tilt on Friday night, Mike. Here's my last headline. Screwyville. UCF defense causes key cards miscues. I think, obviously, we haven't had a ton of turnovers. We've only got 2 on the season so far. We as well documented, no sacks on the quarterback. So I'm hoping for at least 1 interception and at least 1 strip sack. Give me maybe the big cat. He's obviously itching to get one. So I'm going to go with Screwyville. UCF defense causes key cards miscue.
He's gotten close a couple times. There was a play where he just went right around the tackle and had a tackle for loss for about 3 yards. So he's getting there. He hasn't gotten quite home. Maybe this quarterback, who seems to be more of a runner, will give us a little more opportunities. Maybe to catch him trying to do something that he shouldn't be doing, and we can get a sack or 2. But turnovers would be huge. Bethune with a nice interception this past week. I'd love a strip sack. That'd be great.
Well, kudos to our guy, Trace Chalco, by the way, because I feared for his safety for a period of time because in the press conference, he asked Big Cat specifically, hey, how do you feel about having no sacks? And Big Cat looked right at him and said, I'm pissed about it. And I thought Trace may get sacked right there in in the media room there. Luckily, he did not. So I'll give Trey some credit. He has some onions there for asking that question.
He had a sack for asking Big Cat why he has no sacks.
That's Trace Choco. Things are looking up for you, my friend. But those are Saturday's headlines today. Again, I feel like we've gotten pretty good at these. I think Mike nailed the Bowser one from last week. I think I had a pretty decent one on the Bowser one for week 1. I think I had a good one for last week too. Let me go to my notes real quick. What was my last one? Knights fans should be keen on Mikey. I had that one. I feel like he did pretty good. So I feel like we're on a good rhythm with these headlines.
Yeah, I think Gabriel's going to flash his Big Johnson, so I'm going to hit on this one too.
Well, I have nothing else I can say after that. Commercial time.
Mike versus everybody.
All right. We're back. We've decompressed from the headlines portion of the show. And Mike is going to review his picks. So if you're new, here's what goes down. Each week, Mike finds a couple of games. Usually they have some sort of an AAC tie. I don't know if Mike's going to throw in some Big 12 stuff now. I'm not sure how he's going to do that yet. Or they have some bit of a UCF tie, maybe a State of Florida tie. He gives you 3 games. He tells you what's going to happen before it happens. And if you want to take those bets to your local bookie or whatever app that you like to use, at your own peril, my friends, Mike. But let's review how you did last week and the standings so far in our pool tracker competition.
Last week, it depends on how you want to look at it. I'm going by the lines I gave here on the show.
Oh, boy.
So technically I was 1-1-1 because I pushed on the Memphis-Arkansas State game. It was a 5-point spread when I did it here. It was a 5-point game in real life, so that one does not count. Huh. The SMU game I won against North Texas, and the Oklahoma State-Tulsa game I lost. So 1-1-1 last week. For the season, that makes me 2-3-1 after 2 weeks here on the show. And the pool tracker, though, I did pretty well. It was 8-4, so that Memphis-Arkansas State, I had Arkansas State. I got the win for that one. That puts me up to 15 after 2 weeks, ties me with our friend Trace Choco. Only 2 behind the leader, who has 17, and you are right there at 16. So moving my way up after the first week where I didn't do as good as I thought I should have.
All right, so are you sticking to AAC? Are we thinking we're going to sneak some Big 12 in some of these picks? What's the game plan here?
I'm only doing AAC. I guess if by popular demand you guys want to hear some Big 12 picks, maybe there's a game where Big 12 plays AAC. I'll try to pick those. I had one last week with Oklahoma State and Tulsa. I try to stick to just the conference games, though. All
right. So Mike is staying true to the conference. We're going to be good stewards of the American Athletic Conference while we were there, so Mike will follow those rules. And you've got 3 fresh picks for us this week, buddy. Swing away.
Music time.
Okay.
Game number 1. Tulane plus 14 at Ole Miss.
Ooh.
And the Green Wave has been playing pretty well early here in the season. Everybody was a little surprised by their 5-point loss at Oklahoma to open up. Last week, they took care of business against Morgan State Bears 69-20. And Michael Pratt looks like he might be the real deal here for these guys. 2 more touchdowns this past week. They were up 38-0 with 10 minutes and 25 seconds to go in the second quarter. So offense looks like it's rolling there in Tulane. The Rebels, the Ole Miss Rebels, are they still called the Rebels? I don't even know.
I think so.
Well, they blew out Louisville in week 1 and then blew out Austin Peay this past week. The over-under for this game is 77.5. That's probably the biggest over-under out there this week. It's going to be a shootout. Ole Miss has a bye after this week, and then they play Alabama. So maybe a little bit looking towards that game. But I think Ole Miss will win the game. I think they win it maybe by 10. But give me Tulane with the points to keep it close. I like the way they've been playing. The Green Wave has been rolling so far.
Yeah, I think obviously Ole Miss's offense is pretty prolific. Jeff Levy, Lane Kiffin are calling the shots there. Their defense, I think DJ Durkin is their defensive coordinator. Tulane has definitely been a bit of a surprise team. Now, we don't know how good Oklahoma's defense is, and obviously who'd they beat? Stephen F. Who'd they beat? Murray State? What was it?
Yeah, no, Morgan State.
Morgan State.
The Bears.
Sorry,
yeah.
that's my fault. So I don't know how good. So I would go Ole Miss here. I'm gonna say Ole Miss beats them by maybe a little bit more than that. So give me Ole Miss on this one, just because I don't quite yet know how good Tulane is. I feel like there's maybe a come down game at some point. So give me Ole Miss. I'll ride with the Fighting Jeff Lebbies.
All right. I will take the 2 touchdown points. I think Ole Miss wins. I don't see Tulane losing by more than 2 touchdowns. Game number 2, Mississippi State -3.5 at Memphis. The Bulldogs opened the season with a 1-point win against the other Bulldogs, Louisiana Tech, and then beat NC State this past week 24-10, while Memphis was in a shootout of their own against Arkansas State. They won 55-50, but that Tigers defense is looking as soft as it did last year. You match that up, them going up against a Mike Leach offense, I think that's a bad combination for them. Their last meeting, these 2 teams haven't played in 10 years. They've played a bunch of times, though. They've played 44 times in their history. 10 years ago, Mississippi State won that one 59-14. The Bulldogs have owned the series, winning 33 of the 44 games. The last time Memphis won a game in this series, 1993. And the last time they won a game in Memphis was 1988. I like the Bulldogs in this one. 3.5 points does not scare me. I think they win by at least a touchdown. Give me Mike Leach and the Mississippi State Bulldogs to win this one.
Former UCF defensive end Randy Charlton, I believe, is on the Mississippi State team, rather. I don't know what to do with Memphis. Obviously, they're breaking new quarterbacks. Their defense has definitely not been as stout as it should be. So, give me Mississippi State. I'll so I went 1 Mississippi, so I'll go 2 Mississippis here.
3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi.
Yeah,
Memphis, probably. Memphis has not impressed me at all. Their defense stinks. I know people were scared of that game. People were scared of the Navy game. You guys still scared of that Navy game coming up in a couple weeks?
Well, not anymore, because now they fired their offensive coordinator, but then they didn't fire their offensive coordinator, so they got some turmoil there. But, yeah, maybe not. No, Navy does not look solid right now.
Dude, they got blown out by Marshall. They just got beat up again by Air Force. They do not look good at all. That should be another game where we're seeing some Mikey Keene action, I think. All right, here we go. The big one.
Okay.
Game number 3. I have not done it yet this season. I'm doing it this week, baby. The UCF game, UCF -7 at Louisville. The Gus bus is rolling into the Ville. Full steam ahead. The last time we played this, guys, everybody remembers it. The 2013 game, also on a Friday night. Louisville has looked kind of ugly to start the year against Ole Miss. They got beat up pretty well in that game. Last week, they won against Eastern Kentucky, the Colonels, as we all know, but only scored 30 points, 30-3 victory. Not that impressive. Not exactly a 63-point outburst like we just had. This is the next big game. Everybody's been putting this on Dylan Gabriel. Can he win the big game? He won the Boise game. Now, going on the road, this is a big game for him. Can he win this one? I believe he does. I believe Bowser keeps trucking along. 7 points does not scare me in this game. I think we go in there and we make a statement, the first big statement in the Gus Malzahn era to get us into the top 25, which we are just outside looking in right now. I think we go in there, we jump on these guys early, we build a nice lead. Maybe they get a couple points later in the game. But I think I threw out the score earlier when we were doing headlines. 43-20, UCF wins. It's going to be another great Friday night in Louisville.
Yeah, if you listen to the headlines, I actually had him scoring 5 times because I had 3 touchdown passes and 2 Bowser touchdown runs at minimum. So at least give me 35. And you're right. I think UCF beats these guys by more than 7. Offensively, Malzahn talked about it in his press conference on Monday. They're probably more of a quarterback running team. Malik Cunningham is a pretty dynamic runner from a passing perspective. They're still kind of coming along. Defense has been a little bit shaky throughout the year. Obviously, it's a road game, though. It's the first road game of the season. We'll see how UCF can react as a road team. Obviously, it's a night game, Friday night on ESPN. The full stadium, at least what you would assume would be a full stadium. So this will be kind of the first test in at least a couple seasons for UCF in an adverse, road environment. But the first one under Gus Malzahn. So we'll see how they react. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some nerves, if there's a little bit of inconsistency early on. But I think UCF pulls away. And I agree with you, Mike. I have no problem just putzing away those 7 points for a UCF victory.
Right. The line opened at 8 and come down a point. So maybe a lot of people don't feel the same way, but I feel comfortable going into this game. I like the way Malzahn's prepared his team. Like we talked about earlier in the show, we have not beat ourselves with stupid penalties and mistakes like that. So this is an opportunity now to show the maturity of this team going in on the road. I like another thing Malzahn said in the press conference, I believe after the first game. There's more pressure on the home team in some of these games, right? You get off to a slow start. There was a lot of pressure on us down 21 against Boise, and the guys answered the bell on this one. Now we get a chance to go in there and just shut the crowd up from the beginning. I think Dylan's going to go in there and, like he's done, like he did this past week, just go in and have a nice drive to open the game. And really the first game, too. We went right down the field on the first drive, just that one play. So if we can go in there and take a nice lead on these guys, I like our chances in this one.
I mean, maybe I just want to believe it, and maybe I'm just negative in this respect, but I feel like the team this year looks way more prepared than they did last year. I feel like they look more prepared to handle certain situations. I feel like they have better play calls on certain situations, certain downs. It seems like they're just a more prepared team than they were a year before. And preparation is huge, particularly when you're going to go on the road, right? Because, you have a lot of those things you have to contend with, different travel schedules and whatnot. So I think, I don't know, I've seen what I think is a huge increase in preparation over last year's team.
Right. And, we're going to be prepared for this running quarterback and this whole running game from Louisville. That I told you in the headlines, that's going to be the key to this game. Can we shut down the run here like we've done the first couple of weeks? We do that, and I think we run away with this game.
Yeah, big games out of our linebackers, I think, will be huge on this one as well. So those are UCF Mike's picks. Again, if you're not in the pick 'em at this point, you may be a little bit too far behind to catch up. I know we had a couple guys hop in late last week. So if you're not in the pool tracker, you might be a little bit too outside looking in. But if you want to hit us up and see how to get in there, we're happy to have you. If you just want to have some fun and play along and see how you do week after week, we can definitely help you out with that too. But those are Mike's picks. I don't know if those are going to be right. You'll have to tune in next week to find out, along with other things that you may find out next week. And I don't even know what those things are. But what I do know is Cow of the Week. It's still around. The cows are still around, barely. I don't know how much longer we'll do Cow of the Week because they're not really in our life anymore. We may need a new foe at some point. But for now, we have cows, and you're going to hear them right after these words.
Mike and Adam, sons of UCF. That'll move those chains. That's good enough for another UCF first down.
All right, Mike. First off, Cow of the Week. It's been a staple of the program since literally like episode 1. But we're moving on from the cows. Tre'Mon Hodger said doesn't look like we'll be playing them anymore, just based on out-of-conference scheduling and whatnot, Mike. They're kind of a rung below. It feels like we're punching down at this point. Do we keep Cow of the Week long-term? How should we handle this?
Wow. I never thought this day would come.
I know.
We have to find a new segment. What are we going to call it? We're going to go after. The jort wearers over there in Gainesville?
I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a sponsorship opportunity with this. I have no idea, but I'm open to keeping it. I just wonder how people feel about it at this point. I mean, now that we basically just they turned off at the intersection and we just kept driving straight here. I just don't know if we want to stick with Cal of the Week. I'm good with it, but maybe we should give it some thought. We got to figure out who our new conference foe is. Cincinnati, I guess, may be an option, but I don't know. It's just something to think about, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe that maybe in a couple of years we're not even playing the cows anymore.
Yeah,
it's possible. And to keep doing a segment called Cow of the Week when they're a lower conference, not on our schedule, that may be something to think about here.
Well, they're still in our conference, and they're still the cows, and they're still terrible, right, and they still deserve to be made fun of, and we will do just that right now, Mike. Who do you want to pick as your Cow of the Week?
Well, they could have easily been the cows again this week.
Could have, yes.
Did you see their stadium? They claim a sellout, and I saw about 4 green shirts there in the crowd. Not a good look against the Gators there on Saturday. But they were not the cows, for me anyway. The Hurricanes, I guess, could have been another option here in the state of Florida. But there's one team in the state of Florida that just took the cow moniker here this week and ran with it. And you guessed it, our friend Mackenzie Milton over there in Tallahassee, the Florida State Seminoles. Mike Norvell, oh my goodness, what are you guys doing? You think they played well against Notre Dame. You say, wow, maybe these guys are heading back in the right direction now, right? They got a decent season ahead of them. They have a soft schedule coming up. They got Jacksonville State this week. That's an easy win. And then you get Wake Forest and Louisville and a couple other games that they could probably win. Slow down. Because Jacksonville State came in to Tallahassee. And they almost did it a couple years ago, too, where they gave them a tough game. This time, they finished the deal on a last-second touchdown. I knew that they had lost. I didn't even realize they lost in the fashion they lost until today. I saw the replay of this thing. What the heck is Norvell doing at the end of this game? It's obvious they're throwing deep. There's only 6 seconds left in this game. He's not even in a prevent defense. He doesn't have his defenders back to defend against this class. He says because they have a timeout remaining. When are they going to call this timeout, Mike? After this play, the game's over.
Yes.
Dum-dum.
Dum-dum,
And
wow.
then the defensive players on Florida State, basically two of them just like escorting this guy into the end zone for him. I couldn't believe it watching this play. I watched it like 10 times now, and I was just laughing every single time. What has happened to Florida State losing at home to Jacksonville State? Jacksonville, not even in Jacksonville, Florida.
It's not even a state.
No. Oh, my goodness, man. And McKenzie, I guess, did not have a good game. I didn't watch any of the game, but looking at his stats, doesn't look like he played very well either. And so I was kind of surprised when he told me that he's been named starting quarterback going forward, because I figured at this point, what the hell is the difference? I don't know. Norvell, I've always known as an idiot. You guys all know that he's an idiot. He's blew games against us. When he was with Memphis, let's face it, 3 of those games we probably should have lost, and somehow he found a way to lose them for us. So they're the cow of the week for this week. I think it was an easy decision, Florida State. And then you want to throw in the guy on Florida State, what's his name? Brady Scott, I believe, who proposes to his girlfriend, and people are defending him. Oh, whatever, life decision. Dude, you can't do that after you lose a game, especially in that fashion at home. And then you have pictures of you on your knee with the ring and Jacksonville State celebrating in the background. I mean, it just can't happen. You can't. You got to change your plans, right? You had it all figured out. You were going to do it here at the end of the game. No, I'm sorry. You keep that ring in your pocket. You find a new way to do it. You do it somewhere else. You do it off the football field. I don't know why not, because it doesn't look like he's going to have many chances to do it after a win for Florida State this year. So I think you got to call an audible there if you're Brady Scott. But if you don't, and it doesn't appear that he did, and you are going to go through with it, call my sister. Paperandlaceboutique.com.
There you go. Yeah.
And get some wedding invitations for you.
Yeah, maybe she'll give you like 11% off. Who knows? Why don't you do that after the Notre Dame game, by the way? I mean, that would have been perfect time. Obviously, they still lost that one, but there was a lot of good Florida State will after the first game. I don't know if the ring wasn't secured at that point yet, but that might have been a better time to hit the knee if I was Brady Scott there.
Yeah, I guess he was thinking that was definitely going to be a loss.
Yeah.
He probably figured this was an easy win, the easiest game on their schedule. Are we looking at maybe them not winning a game this year? I mean, if they lose this one, it's possible.
Yeah, the league went
not
out.
Looking good.
Yeah, the league went out eventually. I actually almost went cow of the week. I wrote it down and I crossed it out because I know it's kind of blasphemous. I actually wrote down Mackenzie Milton as cow of the week. And here's why, Mike. He knew what Mike Norvell was, right? Like, I mean, he knew what he was getting himself into. Pick any other coach. You could have gone any other coach that you had some more faith and trust in. You knew what you were getting in Norvell. KZ, my goodness. Yeah, he threw his first touchdown. I think he was still getting a little bit of the rotation with him and Jordan Travis. We're still kind of coming in and out. They were running some plays together. They were on the field together for periods of time. So I don't know what Norvell is doing, but like I said in observations, if he keeps this up, Mike, he's the next Willie Taggart. Because Willie T only got 2 seasons there and had some pretty bad losses, and folks are saying this is the worst one that FSU's had in a long time. So if Willie T couldn't make 2 years with some bad losses, I don't know what Norvell. I don't know how much money they got in the buyout market there, but Norvell maybe with the same fate here really quickly.
It's not looking good, man. I don't know what they're gonna do, but Florida State is not in great financials. Spot right now where they could just buy out coaches.
Yeah,
they may be stuck with this guy for a while. How many years does he have left on his contract?
I don't even know. I think he probably signed a 5 or 6, something like that would be my guess.
And he's only in year 2. I don't care. I've told you guys all off season I want McKenzie to do well. I hope they lose every game, and they've done that so far. So Screw the Seminoles. I really don't care.
Here we go. By the way, we went from last week when Mike said bleep the cows to him calling Mike Norvell a dum-dum. So that is really, we've really taken a turn in terms of Mike's insults to other people. My cow of the week, I'm going to stay in the state of Florida, and I'm going to give it to the Miami Hurricanes. Not because they barely eked out a win against a pretty sneaky good Appalachian State team, right? Not because the U is back, not because the turnover chain and all the other things that come with the U. You know why they're my cow of the week, Mike? Because the only thing people know about that game is that a cat almost fell from the upper deck. No one else can tell you anything that happened in that game other than a cat fell from the upper deck. You don't know you probably don't even know the score, by the way. You don't know who threw for what, how many touchdowns. Did De'Aaron King play well? Nobody knows. The only thing people know about that game on any national radio show, any TV show, any podcast I've listened to today, it's all about the cat. I'm glad the cat is okay, by the way, but that should show you, metaphorically speaking, how far Miami has fallen, and that the only breaking news out of a win against a really solid team in Appalachian State is the fact that a cat almost fell, or did actually fall, from the upper deck.
That was a crazy video.
It was crazy. It was crazy, yes.
That thing was hanging on for dear life, and then good on the people that had the flag there to catch him.
But do you know the final score of that game? What was the score?
Well, I only know because I had it from earlier in my I guess it was the observations. Yeah. So they lost 25-23.
Okay.
I'm sorry, they won 25-23.
There you go. Better.
I did not watch one play of that game.
Yeah.
Actually, that may be a lie. I think when I got home, I was watching the end of the UCF game, and I think I flipped over to that one for a minute. Mm-hmm. And one time when I was at the watch party, I walked to the bathroom, and it was on one of the screens. I saw the score. They were losing at the time. But other than that, I didn't really watch it.
Yeah, I mean, what was the big play? What was the turning point of the game? No one knows. The only thing you know is that a cat fell from the upper deck, was half caught by some fast-thinking individuals who had an American flag with them, and then was summarily picked up and held up like a baseball and urinated on everybody around him. And I don't know where the cat's at now, Mike. I tried to follow up on this story because, it's an important journalistic effort on our parts, but I have no idea where the cat's at. All I know is when the most exciting thing that took place in your college football game is that a cat fell from the upper deck. Miami, that's how far you have fallen, and you are my cow of the week.
How is the cat even in there? I mean, I know you see cats in stadiums sometimes. They get on a baseball field and run through the outfield or whatever. No, I hope nobody brought this cat into the stadium on purpose, right? Is this just a stray cat that somehow found its way into Hard Rock Stadium?
You would, I don't know how it got to the upper deck. To your point, you do see these things. The Giants game, right? There was a black cat on the field a few years back, right? So you do see these things from time to time. How it got up to the upper deck, I think, is a little bit interesting. My assumption would be it's looking for food. I don't think it took the elevator. So did it climb up the stairs? Did it take that little swirly ramp over there? I have no idea how it got up there. So that is an interesting conundrum. And then I don't think we yet know how it ended up almost off the railing. Was it running from people? Was it trying to chase something? I don't know how it ended up kind of hanging off the railing. A lot of unknowns about the cat there. But people will tell you in stadiums, Mike, that there's all kinds of animals, and you see it every now and again, that are just living, in warm shelter with food nearby. It feels like a nice little abode if you're a stray animal of some sort. So, I mean, I guess it makes some sense. I don't know how it got all the way up to the upper deck, though.
Yeah, I hope they don't turn this thing into the new turnover chain there in Miami. Every time they get a turnover, they just go over and grab that cat and turn him into a mascot or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
it was a weird video.
It was an odd video, but that's how far Miami has fallen, and that's the only thing that you know about that game, Mike. But what we do know about UCF, obviously 2-0, Louisville on Friday. We will cover as much of that as we can on Thursday night on the live show when Trace Trelko joins us. I believe Trace will already be in Louisville at that moment in time. So perhaps we'll get an update on what's happening. I assume he's going to break and enter into the stadium at some point. So you may even get a Trace Trelko. Actually, I don't know when he's getting out there, so we may not get that this week. But you may get a Trace Trelko walk and talk from parts unknown. You never really know. But obviously, it's a big one, Mike. It's a big one because it's the next one. But it's a big one because obviously it's their first road game, and it's against an ACC school, and it's always good to get those W's on the board. So we will be on with you Thursday night live, 8 p.m. to recap and talk about as much information as we know at that point. And then obviously you can check us out on the pod next week for all of your UCF breakdown needs, Mike. But 2-0 feels good, my friend. It's good to have football back. It's good to have the energy back. How do you feel about the Friday night game, by the way? Does that ruin your schedule? How does that mess with UCF Mike's personal life schedule on a Friday night game?
No, I like the Friday night.
Okay.
I enjoy it. It gives me time to do other things. Actually, my wife's birthday is tomorrow, Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
So this Saturday, I'm taking her out to dinner. So it kind of works out for me this week. So Friday night, I'm on my own. I'm going to the watch party. I took her and the kids to the watch party for the first game. I think this Friday is UCF Mike solo time.
Oh.
A couple friends. My buddy Ricky, who joined me here, he was at the watch party with me this week. I see if he'll go again this week, or I got a couple other buddies over there too. So the people that run that thing, Raphael, who runs the Alumni Association, has become a friend of mine. We text all the time now about UCF stuff. So I'll know people there. I'm a minor celebrity in those parts now. So.
we weren't concerned, buddy. But
I will have a good time.
It. Okay.
So yeah, I like the Friday night. The only thing that I don't like is I started coaching softball again, and I have a practice on Saturday morning at 9:00. So that could be a problem. Maybe it'll rain Saturday morning. That's canceled.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? But I should be okay.
All right.
I think I'll be all right. But yeah, I'm pumped up for Friday night, man. Fireball Friday, as he texted me earlier today.
Yeah, that's gonna be a fiasco of epic proportions. So you're gonna want to catch the pod next week so we can discuss Fireball Friday and see how UCF Mike made out. But feels good to be 2-0. Hopefully we're on the way to being 3-0. And again, we will keep you posted on all those things here, live show, pod show, whatever you need from us. And again, follow us on social media at Sons of UCF. Go to our website, twonightsmedia.com. Follow Mike at UCF Mike1 for exclusive photos of Fireball Friday, hopefully on his feed throughout the weekend. But everybody have a fantastic week. Celebrate. Let's have some fun. It's a huge week in UCF sports history, and hopefully we punctuate it with a big W here on the road again. Everybody be safe. Until then, we'll talk soon. Go Knights.
Charge on.